Ixnay on the Oggie Day is the 18th episode of Season 7 of 2.5 Men. This is directed by James Widdoes, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. I'll be honest, I didn't like it. I didn't hate it, but I'm sick of Chelsea. I really do not like her. But at least now I have valid reasons for not liking her, and I'll talk about that as we go through things. So I don't actually have a tremendous amount to say here. I'll go through the events, I'll recap what happens, I'll share some thoughts along the way, but in general, my main thought is that it's just boring. It's not very good at all. It starts off with Alan at the chiropractor's, and he has a very enthusiastic client. This is Priscilla Honeycutt, played by Frances Fisher, and it's clear that she's getting more pleasure from this than the average client would. And we'll come back to that in a moment. The three of them, Alan, Charlie and Jake, are then out for some food, and Alan says that he's going to pay. Charlie is so surprised he decides to take a photo to remember the moment, and my favourite thing about that is Alan poses. He plays along. He's not offended that Charlie's implying he never pays for anything. By now he can't really deny that, so he just posed and played along, and I really loved it. And then they bump into Chelsea's friend Gail, played by Tricia Helfer, and Charlie's interested in dating her. And Charlie just so happens to get a phone call that night while he's in bed, and it's from Chelsea, and she's crying in Mexico because her relationship with Brad isn't going very well. And then we find out that Charlie's in bed at that time, well, waiting for Gail, who was in the bathroom. And I could not care less, because Chelsea is with somebody else, and she's now started to play a lot with his emotions. It happened in, I think, the previous episode or the episode before, where she basically came back to him, stayed the night, and then decided that the relationship wasn't going to continue. And now she's phoning him again and messing with his emotions. Obviously, morally questionable whether Charlie should be in bed with Chelsea's best friend. But nevertheless, I don't care how Chelsea feels now, because she's not a good person. She was for so long. For so long, she was perfect. She was sweet. She was kind. She was caring and considerate. And she was such a good character, and I felt so guilty disliking her. But I'm kind of glad I now have valid reasons for disliking her, because she really gets on my nerves. Alan then comes home from visiting said client from earlier on at her house, and Charlie is trying to rationalise what he did with Gail. We then cut to Charlie and Chelsea in the coffee shop, which is a nice location. I like it. And Charlie said quite quickly what happened with Gail, and Chelsea told him to go to hell. She has no right at all to talk to him like that. After what she's done to him recently, he can do what he wants. I'm not necessarily saying I completely agree with sleeping with your ex's best friend, but at the same time, he doesn't need to consider her feelings, because she's very clearly not considering hers. So I don't think she had any right to be mad at that. Maybe mad at her best friend, because she is presumably not being nasty to her best friend, but she is being cruel to Charlie. Whereas her best friend probably should have considered her feelings. So she can be mad at Gail. I don't think she has the right to be mad at Charlie. And then she turns up at his house and realises she overreacted a little bit, which, to her credit, she came around quite quickly, much to her credit. And then it turns out Gail is upstairs again. So she wasn't sorry, because if she was sorry, she wouldn't have been bothered that Gail was upstairs, because Charlie's free to do what he wants with whomever he wants. Again, if Gail is her best friend, then Gail shouldn't be doing this, but Charlie has no reason to spare Chelsea's feelings, because she doesn't spare his. So Chelsea's just not a good person, and I do not like her. And then we end the episode, I've gone through this very quickly, with Alan deciding that, having previously decided to tell Mrs. Honeycutt that they can't carry on the way things are, even though he might be getting quite a bit of money from this, he's decided that actually he is cheap, so they can continue with this arrangement. And his receptionist has been witness to this whole thing. She hasn't said a single word, but she's been looking at Alan with somehow no expression on her face, but also a lot of expressions, and it's just absolutely brilliant. And she's called Mrs. Wiggins, played by Amy Hill, and in the end, she wants what Priscilla Honeycutt got. And Alan initially said no, but then she asked for various employee benefits. Alan, being cheap, realised this was the better option and told her to go through. So, a decent enough way to end things, morally questionable, but nevertheless, it was a just a bland episode. It wasn't, I didn't hate it. I hated Chelsea, but I didn't hate the episode as a whole. But I'm sick of the side of Chelsea. They are really milking the story for more than it's worth, and I'm really bored of it. And Alan's part of the narrative was okay. Alan posing with his wallet to show he was paying, I did like though. So in general, I don't know if I'd skip it if I were binge watching this season, but I certainly wouldn't seek it out. Ultimately, Ixnay on the Oggie Day is far from my favourite episode of Two and a Half Men. It's not the worst, but I don't think it's particularly enjoyable either. And that's mostly because of Chelsea, but it's also just not the funniest. I guess it's fine, but it's never going to be a favourite.